Along the journey of awakening, there's often a moment when the ground beneath your feet seems to disappear. It might happen after a powerful spiritual revelation or a quiet internal collapse of the identity you once held dear. Suddenly, what felt familiar becomes strange and distant. You break through the veil of illusion, witnessing the inner machinery of your habits and the overwhelming noise of the world. Then comes silence. At first, this silence feels sacred, a breath of fresh air, like stepping out of a burning building into cool, clean space. But as time passes, this silence shifts. Meaning begins to slip away, not with a dramatic crash, but with a gentle fading, as if your soul has dimmed the lights and forgotten to turn them back on. You stop pushing, striving, performing, not because of despair, but due to a sacred exhaustion, a hollow stillness that feels peaceful and yet unnervingly empty. And then a quiet whisper arises, asking, "Why do I feel so empty now that I finally see the truth?" This is the paradox no one warns you about. Awakening is often portrayed as a fire that ignites purpose, but for many, especially the sensitive, the seekers, the empaths, it clears out the old fuel, leaving an emptiness that can be mistaken for apathy. What unexpected feelings did your awakening bring you? I remember a close friend, deeply spiritual and well-versed in the wisdom of Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts, and others. She emerged from a dark night of the soul with crystal-clear insight, seeing through the illusions of identity, achievement, and external validation. Yet 2 months later, I found her lying still in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling, lost in an unexpected stillness. "I used to cry about not doing enough," she confessed. "Now I don't care if I do anything at all. I thought awakening would set me on fire, but instead I feel extinguished." Carl Jung spoke profoundly about this phase, the sacred terrain between the collapse of the ego and the birth of the self. It is a liminal space, terrifying in its quiet, where the old scripts fade and the new self has yet to take form. This isn't failure. It is the chrysalis stage of the psyche, where the caterpillar dissolves into formlessness before emerging as a butterfly. It's a psychological death needed for rebirth. Have you ever felt lost in this quiet space, unsure whether you're fading or growing? This liminal space often feels like a sacred pause, not a breakdown, but a breakdown of old ways. It's a place where motivation fueled by ego and social approval dissolves, leaving behind raw clay, unshaped and uncertain. But within this void, there is a deeper call, a subtle pulse of soul truth waiting patiently to be heard. It's not about proving yourself anymore, but about simply being. Movement now arises not from craving recognition, but from inner harmony. This quiet, unsettling emptiness is actually fertile ground for transformation. Many mistake this space for apathy or failure because it looks like nothing is happening. But in truth, this is initiation, the soul's sacred descent before it can rise anew. Jung described this as the Nigrada, the blackening phase in alchemy, where the ego is dismantled, but the self has not yet claimed the throne. It's spiritual limbo, a holy pause that modern culture struggles to understand. What if what feels like emptiness right now is actually the beginning of a new kind of fullness? What's been your experience with stillness after a big shift? Share your thoughts below. Your story might inspire someone else in the same place. Many people resist this silence because it doesn't look like progress. Our culture glorifies hustle and visible success, yet this phase demands surrender to stillness and uncertainty. Jung warned that modern society tries to numb or medicate this moment of spiritual pause because it's hard to grasp a transformation that doesn't wear the mask of achievement. But this is not regression or depression, though it may feel dark at times. It's a sacred descent, a necessary shedding of old layers so the true self can emerge. The soul is refusing to keep playing a role that no longer fits. Most people never speak openly about this phase, the ache after the light, the silence after the revelation. But if you can learn to hold this space without rushing away, you may discover that what looks like emptiness is actually fertile ground for authentic rebirth. What is one thing you've learned about sitting with discomfort rather than running from it? Let me know in the comments. As the ego's scripts dissolve, the familiar ambitions, timelines, and roles fade away like mirages. You don't lose your drive. You outgrow the fuel that once powered it. What remains is a quiet void waiting to be filled by something deeper, not performance, but presence. This inner pause is the chrysalis stage of the psyche. Like a caterpillar dissolving into formlessness before becoming a butterfly, you are between who you were and who you will become. This transformation requires patience and trust in the unseen process. Jung called the ultimate aim of life individuation, the integration of ego into a larger, deeper whole. It's a journey from fragmentation to wholeness, from seeking approval to aligning with your true self. Have you ever felt stuck between who you were and who you want to be? What helped you move forward? Share your experience. Spiritual awakening often strips away the false self, the mask shaped by societal expectations. You begin to see the persona for what it is, a role, a performance. Once you glimpse this illusion, chasing applause or external validation loses its pull. You might feel aimless, but it's not because you lack direction. It's because your old identity, the one tied to goals and roles, has been shed. This creates a profound spiritual limbo. You're no longer asleep, but not yet fully awake. This is not laziness or failure, but a sacred pause where the soul recalibrates. The energy that once came from ego-driven ambition now waits quietly for a new rhythm, one aligned with your deepest truth. What has helped you reconnect with your true self when external goals no longer inspire you? I'd love to hear your story. This stage is often misunderstood as spiritual bypassing, floating above life, calling everything an illusion, and convincing yourself nothing matters. But true awakening is not about escape, it's about embodiment. Your soul is calling you to come back into the world, not to withdraw. This grey space after awakening is where transformation happens, even if it looks like stillness or confusion from the outside. Jung emphasized that this is not a mistake, but a necessary initiation, a descent into the unknown. The challenge is to resist the urge to rush or retreat and instead embrace the quiet waiting. Have you experienced moments where embracing uncertainty led to unexpected growth? Tell me about it below. During this sacred pause, the unconscious begins to rise, not as a threat but as a guide. Repressed emotions, grief, and unmet needs surface because now there is space to face them. Your ego panics and wants clarity and action, but the self whispers gently, "Let go, I'm forming something deeper." This is where the real work of awakening begins. Not in doing, but in surrender, not in control, but in witnessing. The psyche is metabolizing years of illusion and false striving, preparing you for a new way of being that flows from presence rather than performance. What practices help you stay present when your mind wants to control everything? Share your tips. Out of this stillness, a new motivation arises. It doesn't roar with urgency or anxiety, but hums softly, a soul-led impulse to move, not because you must, but because it would be a betrayal of your truth, not to. Jung called this the emergence of the self, a living, breathing compass guiding you toward wholeness, not success. This quiet inner calling invites you to create, teach, heal, and serve, not for applause, but because your whole being says yes. What new motivation or purpose has quietly emerged in your life? Let's discuss it below. You've crossed the threshold and stood in the silence. You've wandered through the inner night, where no voice called out, no light showed the way. Now, something ancient stirs, not as a roar or lightning bolt, but as a soft, steady pulse. This is the first whisper of the self, a life no longer ruled by ego or societal expectations, but guided by the deeper forces of your soul. Living from this place means responding rather than hustling, choosing peace over performance, and trusting the quiet language of dreams, symbols, and intuition. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences. Your voice may be the light guiding someone else through their own transformation.